What's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Your Wrong Sir podcast. I have been hyped about this episode all day. This is a guest. I've seen her work on Instagram, and we'll talk further about it with some other things, but she's an amazing artist to start off with. And so this is an individual, a graphic designer, team photographer for the Carolina Panthers, also the first Black creative director in the SEC at the University of Tennessee, and also the designer of the 2021 National Football Championship trophy. So I present to you all Chanelle Smith-Walker. Thank you, Chanelle, for hopping on.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me. I'm
excited. Yes, I'm excited. We just had a conversation before, and I told her I was just really hyped to have her on. But we're just gonna hop straight into it. For me, I just kind of like to just build the story, build the scene, but I always start off with one important question that I feel like just sets the tone for the conversation. So for me, what's your intention? Like, what type of creative do you want to be? When it's all said and done, kind of like what imprint do you want to leave on this industry?
So I will say, how there's like a player coach. Like I'll definitely say like I'm like a player designer. When I design for the player. So
wow, I've never heard that before. I like that.
Thanks. So to me, I'm there to tell their story. So I'm there to show the hard work that they've done behind the scenes, and then I show the fans and people that follow the team. So I think that's what makes me like a different designer, and I want to show the emotion. Like even when I photograph, when I make graphics, I definitely want to show the emotion behind a piece. So obviously you have some like generic pieces where it's like schedule release or things like that, but any custom pieces that I can do, like I want to show where the emotion, like players' personality. But I will say as a creative as a whole, like honestly, like I just want to be authentic, genuine, and I just honestly want to inspire people. Like when I first got into the industry, there was not many people that looked like me. And so that's probably why I was the first in a lot of different categories. But for me, I just want to inspire the other creatives, but also like I want to show athletes another part that you don't just have to be an athlete. Like I was a college athlete, but I did both. Like I focused on my sport, but I also found another outlet to express myself, which was through art. So I just want to show that you can be great at multiple things, and you can have other outlets besides your sport. So I feel like I have a lot of different meanings, but the biggest thing is like I just want to inspire people and just tell people to stand in their truth.
Yes, that's amazing. And you touched on so many things that I want to build upon. For me, first thing you talked about just being a college athlete, right? D1 University, Elon, you're playing volleyball, things of that sort. I just want to talk about the stigma sometimes that we see with athletes. Is like, hey, you're an athlete all year round, right? And sometimes it's just maybe harder because you're forced on a team, not forced, but being on a team with people who share the commonality of playing a sport as you, but you all may not have the same type of interest. You're not the same person. You come from different backgrounds. And I think my question to you is, you kind of found your minor was digital art. And so you kind of knew like, hey, I like being a creative. I kind of like this space. I understand it. So just talk to me about kind of going against that stigma of college athletes only focusing on being an athlete, but kind of also honing in on your 40 to 50 year plan instead of your 4 to 5 year plan.
So it actually started. So when I was little, I'd always like been into art. My mom would take us to like these like ceramic like classes where we'd like make mugs together and like.
So this is in the roots. This is in the genes.
This is definitely like in the roots. But it's like funny because I have an identical twin sister and she's not like creative like whatsoever. But so I'd always been into art. So like even in middle school, like elementary school, like I was like kind of like my artwork would get submitted. Like when I had to do art class, I would get like in competitions and stuff like that.
Yeah, mine never got submitted.
So I always knew like I was a creative person. And I'm so thankful that my mom like allowed me to like tap into that. So my parents were great at letting me like do both. They were just like, if you're gonna do both, like you need to fully be invested in both. Like you can't like half-ass do anything. So when I got to high school, we had a graphic communications class. And so that's like where I first learned like what graphic design was. So it was more like logo design. That's why I first learned Illustrator. And Mr. Dykes, like I will tell, like I still talk to him to this day. He's my high school teacher. I'm like, he is literally like what helped my career and like
that's amazing.
What I want to do with my life. And so we had this program called Skillsusa. And so I was always the type of person that like, I just honestly didn't necessarily give a shit what people thought about me. So
I love it.
so I was one of those people that like, my sister would tell you, she'd be like, you're like an athletic nerd. As in like, I literally was like, I was full sports. Like I did travel volleyball. Like I was a competitive, we were competitive cheerleaders.
Yeah.
Like, so I did I did AAU basketball when I was in middle school.
Y'all did it all.
Yeah. So we just came from a very athletic family. Like my brother did like 5 different sports too. But so I knew sports was going to get me to my college, like my tuition paid for. So I was in volleyball, like I won a state championship in high school, like I was MVP, like all these like awards, but also like I was like, I knew my passion was in design. And so I say I was an athletic nerd because I was one of those people like I hung out with the athletic people, the football players, things like that. But I also was like with like my friends who were just like these like random ass like white folks that and I was competing in like design competitions like in Georgia. And I laugh because when you look at the picture, it's like I was literally like the only Black person in the picture. Like I had like my black slacks on and my polo like tucked in my pants, but then later that evening I was like playing in a volleyball game. So it's like I had that passion for both. And so I will say when I got to college, I knew, okay, I wanted to be creative. So as soon as I got to Elon, I like found internships. So I like interned at my student newspaper as a graphic designer. Then
which is amazing.
Thank you. My second year, I was interning at a photography company. My third year, I was a part of working with our PR agency called Live Communications. And my senior year, I interned at the ACC. So like I wanted to make sure that I set myself up for when I graduated, but but you have to have that mindset and the hustle that you want to do both. Like I knew that I wanted to be creative, so I had to fully commit to doing both. So so I tell people all the time, like you can definitely do both, but like you can't half-ass do both, if that makes sense. You have to be fully 10 toes down in both those of what you want to do. So
that's some good advice. Just even for college athletes who are listening, that's really great advice, because I know a lot of people who want to do things outside of just the sport and not really knowing how to balance it. But a question that I have too is I think something that's admirable with a lot of people is understanding like, okay, this is my alpha plan. Like this is my plan for right now that's going to get me to where I want to be, which is like my omega plan and things I want to do in the future. And you talked about knowing that sports was going to guide you to get this full ride, but I'm also going to utilize this degree to just get into what I want to do. And so how do you just I guess my question is come to terms with that? Because a lot of people will want to choose one thing or want to go to school for creative design if that's what I really want to do. And why can I get a scholarship for that? And why do I have to play a sport, to move forward?
Like at that point in time, like getting like design like scholarships wasn't really a thing,
right?
And so like just recently, like I've seen like schools like Nebraska has like a full scholarship for like young designers that for undergrad.
That's crazy.
And it's crazy, but like when I was going to college, like it wasn't a thing. And so for me, it was just like, okay, like how can I strategically set myself up to be ready for that? So honestly, the Skillsusa honestly helped me out a lot. And it helped me out a lot because they were the ones that were like, oh, like you can, like they showed me examples of like people who did this program that they were like, they went to college for that. So I was like, oh, this is like a thing. Like I can make money off of being creative.
Yeah.
And I don't think Black people realize that we're naturally creative people. So it's like, so I can make money off my natural creativity. Like
it's lit.
So right. So like to me, it was just like so easy to make that decision. But with Skillsusa, not only did it help me be creative, it helped me like learn how to network with people that didn't look like me, which I think is huge for the industry. But also like it helped me do like mock interviews. Like my mom had been in HR for like literally like 15 years. And so she actually came in because part of the process for like when you're competing in these competitions, you had to do like a mock interview with like some random person. So like I had to do mock interviews with my mom and like stuff like that is what helped me figure out like, okay, like, so if I'm gonna like actually do these mock interviews, like clearly I love what I'm doing. Because like you're not gonna do something like that if you don't really.
Not at all. Especially with moms though. Like moms would be the criticism. Like
right. And my mom's from New York and she does not play. So I was just like, she was like critiquing me, like talking too fast. Like I'm like, okay. So that's when I knew like, okay, this is what I wanted to do. But I just think sitting down and I'll already tell you, like I'm not a planner. So like I didn't have that mindset of like, I didn't necessarily know like there were opportunities like I have now. Like when I was in college, like, I didn't really know jobs like this existed when I was in college. But I will say like I knew like, okay, I wanted to go to a place where I could have like be an artist. So that's like even before Elon, like I was looking at SCAD, like I was looking at a lot of these other schools that like had volleyball programs that where I could tap into like my creativity. To where I could fully like be a creative, if that makes sense. And like, and I wasn't just going to a place where like I was just getting a degree just to get a degree. So
yes, that's amazing to have a plan and be strategic. But I never even thought about that. Like people usually don't have creative scholarships, like at all. Especially in the Black community, it's like you better get your grades up so they give you the academic scholarship. Not one for being creative. So I've never thought of that either. And like I feel like a lot of media schools now, it's on the rise just because marketing, like you even sports teams, like you see how important it is if a recruit comes in and you make them a dope graphic or you take some good pictures and they like, man, like they, you know, they got me looking good. And that makes a total difference. And so I think the emphasis also comes from just organizations understanding how that can bring people and attract them to, you know, their orgs.
But it's crazy though, because to be honest, like I think that's where there's a gap between just like there's a lot of just white creatives, because it's things like that are not common in the Black community. Like black parents are old, like raise their kids either you're academics or you got to be an athlete, and that's like the only way to like make it in college. And it's not true, because when I was at Tennessee, like at the time I was at NC State and I was going to Tennessee, there was this one kid that we really wanted, and he was a creative, he was a designer, is like white guy, super dope kid. And they wanted him to come to NC State for his undergrad so he could be an intern for our graphic department. But he was also, Tennessee would also wanted him to be a designer. So we were kind of like competing. And Tennessee literally brought him in as like he was a recruit, but he was just a designer, but they wanted him to choose Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I don't even think it was a scholarship, but they wanted him to come to Tennessee so they can bring him in as a paid intern. And I just thought it was crazy, because you see that a lot in a lot of the white communities, where it's like Nebraska, a lot of their interns are mainly white, like Tennessee, all of my interns are mainly Black till I got there, and I was able to bring in like this Black girl. But it's like it's not common in the Black community to even look to see,
not at all.
Hey, maybe I could go to a school and maybe they could pay for my tuition and be a creative there. It's not common, because we're just trained in our mindset. It's either like you have to be really smart or you have to be athletic and the Black community to make it. And to me, that's not true. Like I felt like I wouldn't say I'm like super smart, like I had to get good grades or like I was getting in trouble with my parents, but like I was a creative and I was a decent athlete where I knew I could get my tuition paid for. So I think hopefully we can start shifting our mind, and people and just Black creatives to start advocating for themselves and say, hey, I want to be creative, and find ways to get in the industry before you're like for your 4 years into a degree, and then you're trying to figure that out after you've graduated already.
That's real. That's so real, because I always tell people this, and like a lot of people come to me with the podcast like, oh my God, you're creative, or you made a reel, or you made a TikTok now. I'm like, if you would have told me freshman year that I was a creative person, I would tell you I wasn't creative. Like I would tell you like, no way I'm creative. And it's just simply because like I wasn't exposed to it. And I think we also don't understand that there are different forms of creativity. Like people on TikTok are creative, you know, like coming up with that is creative. You can draw, you can be a photographer, you can make a graphic design, you can make a book, like whatever you want to do. And I think we're just not exposed in the Black community to all of those options. So that's a really necessary conversation, because I think the more we're exposed to different things, like coming here to a bigger school, it's like, okay, wait, like I ain't never met somebody who could make a graphic before, ever, like ever in my life. So many people around me do it, and I'm like intrigued, like I like that. How you do that? And I might not want to do it, but like that's dope to me. And then I start figuring out like, okay, maybe that's not what I want to do, but maybe I can think of a good question, or maybe I could figure out what's a good series for the podcast. And that's a form of being creative too. So that is real. That's real. That's a good one. And I know you talked about earlier, let's talk about your style. So having different internships, you know, from internships, you gain experience, you figure out what you don't like to do, figure out what you do like to do, where you want to be, where you don't want to be. And you talked about just being the player's creative. When did you develop that ideology, that style? Like, when did you figure out like, okay, this is who I am. This is how I differentiate myself as a photographer, or also a graphic designer too?
I think I started noticing it more when I got to Baylor, when I moved over to football. When I was coming up with these concepts, and I was like, because there was this really big contest I wanted to do, and it was before any other team wanted to do it, and it was, I wanted to do like a tattoo series. Because I consider like, of course, like I have a full arm sleeve, so I think
I want one bad. I'm scared.
That's what people like to overthink. Just like do it. Like I literally just woke up one day and I was like, I want to get a sleeve, and just like started doodling shit and just like.
Really? Okay. When I get mine, I'm gonna see the picture like Chanelle.
I did it. And so I wanted to do a tattoo series, and people were like, "What? Like a tattoo?" And I'm just like, "Yeah," because like tattoos are like, especially like, and like not, and tattoos are a universal thing. Like it's not like it's like a black thing, a white thing. It's like
everybody.
I've seen everybody have tattoos, whether they're old, young, any type of ethnicity. Like they have tattoos, and so to me, that's it's a way of an expression. So I want to do a tattoo series on just explaining why they got it here, what it meant, like if it didn't mean anything. Like a lot of my tattoos don't mean shit.
You're ahead of your time. Like GQ does that with players now.
Right, exactly. And I had that. I came up with that concept back in like 2017, like before it came out. But we couldn't do it because like I was right when the issue with everything with Baylor went on, and so we kind of were just very limited. So that's when I knew I was like, okay, like I'm definitely like I'm a player's designer, where it's like I want them to have an expression or say in the art. And so then I came up with this series with this guy named Aura, who's now the creative director at Nebraska. And I was like, I told him, I was like, I want to do this thing where it's like the players are in like their normal, the recruits is for signing day. They're like their normal clothes, and they go in the mirror, and they like, we let them swag out, do whatever they want to do, can brush their shoulders off, like anything, any type of movement they want to do. And then in the reflection of the mirror, it flips to them in a Baylor uniform.
Ooh,
and so
that's tough.
It was super dope. And and so that was the first time when I was like, okay, we've actually executed our deal where the players show their personality, because we gave them a free reign. You can wear what you want to wear. You can wear your high school jersey, anything. You could swag out and show your type of personality, anything that you want to do. And so that's when I knew I was like a player's creative. And then when I got to NC State, where I was running my full creative team, like it just like took over.
Yes.
Where like I was just doing a lot of things that I was able to express the players' like creativity. Like I was interacting with players, like, what do you guys want to see? And to me, that also helped me out more, because I was able to tell their stories. And when you're posting stuff that they like, they're going to interact with it more.
And repost it every day.
Exactly. But then also it made me realize that this was the first time a lot of players saw not just a Black person in that role, but like a Black woman in that role, where I was able to bring out other players' personalities. Like there was like creativity.
Because you don't feel comfortable. You don't feel it's real. You do not feel as comfortable.
Exactly. And so they were coming up to me with ideas. And then one of our players that I'm really close with now, his name is Tayshawn. He actually he was talking to me. He's like, I've been wanting to start this clothing line. Like, he helped me with it. And so we were just like bouncing off of ideas. Deontay Holden had this idea about this podcast, and they both like have their own he has his own podcast, he has his own clothing line.
Yes.
And like his mom actually DM'd me when she saw I was leaving to Tennessee, and she like thanked me for that. She was like, I just want to thank you for like showing Tayshawn that he can also be something more than just a football player. Like,
that's good.
Creative. And so being a player's creative just like opened up so many avenues for myself, that it's like, I'm not in this for the fans. I'm not in this for the likes or whatever. I'm in this for the players on the field that are putting in the work behind this. And I want to find a way to connect that to them. So that's why I've been able to do a lot of these series. Like I did the fitted series at Tennessee. I did the wallpapers at NC State, where each like senior did like a custom wallpaper, and I was working with them on what do you want this wallpaper to look like?
Yes.
Whether it's your hometown, whether it's like if there's something you're known for, like I want to show your personality. And to me that's like changed wonders for myself and just like my career, because I feel like a lot of people design for the clout of the fans, and I'm not designing for that. I'm designing to put on for the players. So
that's good. And I think the big lesson from that for anybody who's listening is intentionality. If you are intentional, if you kind of know, and even being a player's creative, I'm curious, before, let's say you get a job, because we'll hop into the different organizations you've been a part of, but let's say we go to Tennessee, we go to NC State, whatever, we go to Baylor. Do you research the players or learn more about them just before you take the position? Just a little bit, I guess, to kind of have a background of their story or what you want to tell?
No, so I look at more of just like, I look at their social media first. I would just look at so do the players have personality, or what they're lacking? Like, like if I feel like it's kind of just like flat, I don't really know what their vibe is. And then once I get to the program, I meet with the coach first. So like when I first got to NC State, like, because NC State was my first job where it's like I was fully like taking over a program. And I'll be honest, when I first got there, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Like we were not seeing eye to eye. He was like, Chanelle, like, what is this? And I think part of it was because I was the first like Black woman that's ever been in this role. And then for him, I think it's just it's a learning curve. And so I didn't really know, like, I was like, I don't really know like much about NC State football. Like I'm personally not a sports fan whatsoever. So, which I think has actually helped me out a lot in my career. And so I actually sat with Coach Dorn and I was like, Coach D, like what is NC State football? Like when you talk about NC State football, what do you want people to see? And he was like, blue collar, hand in the dirt type of thing. So I was like, okay, bet. So I went back and I literally wrote down, okay, blue collar, hand in the dirt, like tough, like hardworking. All right, cool. So I went down, okay, what imagery can I use to show that? And so I went down, and it was like, okay, so I was like sweat, like dirt flying everywhere. And so then I was like, okay, how can I execute this? And so I took, okay, this is what he wants his brand to look like. Then I look back at what is my personal brand? What is my personal style? I like to
figure out how to put them together.
Yes, you figure out how to merge those two looks. And then I'm getting to know the players. Cause like, that's the thing, when you're working with players, it's like, it's not going to happen overnight. Like you're going to have to be, like you said, intentional and really find the ways to have those conversations. And so after like my first couple months at NC State, I mean, I was constantly having players in the office, just talking.
That's amazing.
Like, I have this idea, like, can we do this? Like, and it was like, and to this day, like, I'm still like so close to just that whole program. Even players at Tennessee, and I wasn't even at Tennessee super long, but it's like, when you're intentional with those, when you're intentional with their ideas, and players can tell when you're full of shit too. So like they know when you're just like trying to be cool, just be cool. You're really trying to get to know them because you really want to tell their story. And honestly, it's been great. Like it's been great. So
yes, that's amazing. And you talked about, so going to your IG page, of course I got to do my research on YouTube, so I'm there just like you're looking at the players. And some of my favorite posts that you have, and you talked about this, just merging styles and understanding what are we showing, your behind the scenes IG posts. So I see like two of them, and my favorite one was the one with the ice, where y'all like got ice from the gas station and y'all put it in the ice cruncher and put it around a truck and spreading it. But to see the outcome of the pictures, it was amazing.
Crazy.
And so like for me, I love seeing into that, because I feel like people don't understand the process of what you have to put in to get one quick picture. You know, you don't see that. Like you guys were up early, putting ice and stuff, everything. And I think just my question right now is, how do you know when to go the extra mile as a creative? Like to me, that was extra mile, but it was worth it though for that moment.
For me, it's like, I honestly, I've always been the type of person, I just always go above and beyond. Like I do more than expected. And I truthfully think it's because I'm not in this industry because I want to be cool with players or like, cause I like football. Like I'm literally a creative. Like I truly enjoy being creative. So like those were literally just like, so every week we would do like a reveal for like a uniform, and it could be something like, most people did something super simple, but I was like, I want to make this like something that really shows like our creativity, our personality. How can I get our interns involved? And I wish we had more behind the scenes of all these other shoots, because I mean, we had some like wild shit that we did.
Give me the wildest story. What's the wildest one?
So I will say, honestly, the ice one was probably super wild, because it was funny because they thought it was good. They're just like an 18-wheeler. I was like, yeah, I need an 18-wheeler. Like, and they were just like, so like, you're just gonna like rent it? I was like, no, I'm just gonna ask. If he says no, we'll think of another plan. Like, cause my thing is like, it's just a no. Like, who gives a shit? Like, a no is a no.
Exactly.
So I just like asked. I was like, is there any way like we could just like borrow this for like a day? And he was like, oh yeah. He was like, where do you want it? So he pulled it up, and then
I'll park it
there.
Can you
rent this like ice machine? It's only like $50 like a day. Can we just rent it? So we just like bought like a shit ton of ice, and like we were going to like the training room getting ice. But I think honestly, probably one of the fun ones was, so it was a Halloween one, and it's on my portfolio under like the uniform reveals, and I saw this like literal, like it's from a movie where it looked like he was coming with like a white sheet, and it was crazy. So I was like, how can we do this with like a uniform? And so we ordered this like white saran wrap that you just like wrap like big ass stuff with. Yeah. And so we actually had one of our strength conditioning coaches with a uniform, and we wrapped him around it, and we literally like had him like fall. But it was like, I mean, our interns were literally like, because I mean he was a big ass dude. And so we was our interns, and so I had to like literally, I mean, they're like leaning back, like holding him by the and we're just like, okay, fall. And we're just like, I mean, it's like you have like a split second to take the photo. But it was super dope because it literally looked like, I mean, I wish you could see it, but it was because it literally looked like he was just like going through like a spider web. And it was like the craziest like stuff that we did. But it was cool because our interns were involved. And it's like, I would sit down with them, okay, y'all, I have this crazy idea. Like, how can we execute this? So they were involved in the process. Like, we're just like, I mean, we're like sweating because it was hot as hell outside. We're like, we're just like, okay, now fall. Okay, now jump. Like, and then we're, okay, so the first concept didn't work. Okay, so how can we make it work? I mean, we're like problem solving, like on the go. Like, it was just dope. It was a cool, like, if you can take the time to look at it, it was like,
I got really you. Cool, like, I'm gonna look at it right after this. This is gonna be one of my snippets. I'm gonna put the photo up. I got you. Yes, cool. That I gotta see it because I love the snow one. Like, just jumping, and then it's like the snow looks like it's in his helmet, but it's not. I was like, bro, this is tough. Like,
yeah, it was cold as hell too. So.
I already know. And then just talking outside of like work, right? You have to brand yourself as a creative also, right? You're helping other athletes build their brands, but you got to bring yourself too. And one of the things I saw you say was people always ask, hey, Chanelle, how do you get an opportunity? And you're like, y'all, be on Twitter. Talk to me about just building your brand outside of also being a part of a bigger brand, and just using Twitter. Like, how did you utilize that platform, and what can creatives do?
So when I was on Twitter, when I first got on Twitter, I had it like in college, and I probably had like 200 followers. I wasn't really like on it. But then when I realized, oh, the sports industry is like on here, and because like a lot of your work this is before Instagram was like super booming, so like Twitter was the move. So like a lot of my work was getting posted on Twitter. When I first got to Southern Miss, when I GA'd there. And honestly, like, I just decided, I was like, I'm gonna post my work and just show my personality. I feel like with social media, like a lot of people like cap and they just post stuff that people want to hear. But I think for me, I think what helped me build my brand, it's like, no, whether you like it or not, like I'm gonna stand in my truth and speak up. So whether it's for women supporting women, or Black Lives Matter, or just how I feel like the creative industry is underpaid, it's like, or just like your mental health, it's like, I'm gonna speak my truth, whether you like it or not. And I think that's honestly what's helped me a lot. And when I tell you, literally every job has come from Twitter. I haven't had to apply for
That's crazy.
Literally, my job from Southern Miss to Baylor was a DM on Twitter. Baylor,
what do you post on Twitter? Is it like your pictures? Like, are you posting the work? Like, what are you posting?
Yeah, so I post a lot of my work on Twitter. But a lot of it's just like retweeting when like other teams post on work, when the organization I'm with posts on work, I retweet it. Or I'll interact with a lot of creatives on social media. But then also I just speak up. Like I literally advocate for myself and other creatives. And not everyone's gonna be at that, because I don't want people to do it just because that's how I did it. Like you'll find your lane, and I happen just to find mine. But honestly, like it's crazy because I literally went from like 200 followers on Twitter to like I'm close to like 10,000 now.
That's
like,
crazy.
It's crazy. And even with Instagram, like it's like I literally just hit 10,000. It's literally, and none of it's literally, when I tell you, none of it has been from, hey, follow me on social media. Like it's literally just me just like advocating for myself. It's like so organic that it's like, and I think because like I'm just like very genuine, I'm authentic, and I think people can tell that I'm not full of shit. Like I say is I stand in my truth. And it's like, whether you like it or not, it's like, I'm going to speak up for myself and speak up for creators in the industry. And just whether it's like making it more diverse, creating opportunities for minorities, and things like that. It's like, I'm going to speak up for it. So I honestly think that's what's helped me out a lot. But it's like, I have to be all the time. Like, people think Instagram is the way, but I'm like, Twitter, I literally have gotten every job on Twitter, I'm telling you. So.
Yes. Ooh. Okay, so, and just building upon that, right? Followers, things getting up, building your brand organically. There's this quote that I was so ready to use for this podcast, and it just made me think of you. So I seen somebody say, like, we always hear about people's prime. And a lot of the times you don't know you're in your prime until you're out of it. And you can look back on it. And I was like, whoa, like, okay, like that's different. But it was real. And a lot of your accolades are just inspiring because it's first Black this, first Black female this, first design Black duo and things like that. Just talk to me about, does that mean anything to you? Like, what are those moments for you? How do you grasp it? And when was like, if it hasn't been yet, okay, but that moment where you step back like, whoa, I'm the first, Black creative director. Like, what does that feel like?
Well, you're about to be emotional. I'm sitting here talking about it.
Uh-oh.
So I honestly, so it didn't really hit me like that. It was like a big deal. Probably till I got to the national championship when I was, I'm about to cry. When I honestly, I didn't want, because I was like mentally like exhausted, like after my like second season with NC State, that I was like, I really wasn't gonna take the opportunity to go to the national championship, because I think I was just at a phase where it's like, I was kind of questioning myself, like, dang, am I good? Because I was literally just like burnt out. So I wasn't gonna take the opportunity. But Katie, she was like, no, like, please, like, I really want you to do this. Like, would you be open to it now? And so my mom was like, I think you should do it. Like, she was like, maybe this will help you get like out of this creative funk that you think you're in. Because every creative thinks they're in a funk, but in reality, to the outside world, they don't think you're in a funk at all.
Yep.
But in my head, I was just like in a funk. I was like exhausted. And so I did it, and just the love that we got from doing that, and to realize that I was the first in that category.
Yeah.
The first Black designer they've had for the college football playoffs, a national championship, and just being part of the first all female design duo. I literally, when I was in the press box and I was there, like, I finally took the moment and I literally was like crying. I was like, because I just couldn't believe that I was like here. But then it really hit me, like, so after that, and then Tennessee came along, and I had and the thing is, I had a lot of other job offers that were kind of, they all, after the national championship, it just like, they all kind of came on. But I feel like I didn't want to jump at the wrong opportunity. And so when Tennessee came along, and it was like, and it started getting out there, like, oh, like, I would potentially was leaving NC State. And then I did the USA Today article that like announced that I was going to Tennessee.
Yeah.
And when they announced that I was the first like Black creative director in the SEC, I think for me first came like anxiety. So I was so scared to announce that I was like, even, that's why I kind of like really didn't, like, I kind of just like subtly announced it.
Yep.
Because our like SID was asking like, so when are you gonna like announce it? And I was so scared because, for one, like, it was a big deal. And so I knew I knew a lot of pressure was gonna come on.
Yep.
But then also, like, you're dealing with, like, Knox was a very like racist, like Tennessee as a whole was a very racist background. And the guy before me was a white guy. So they pretty went like to a 180, complete opposite of what they had before. And then so dealing with that, and to be the first, it came with like a full anxiety. Like, I was so scared to announce it. So when it came out, like, I like was just like kind of just like, oh shit, because I like couldn't really fully get excited yet, because I was seeing the comments, and like they were just like ripping me apart in the comments. And
get out.
Yeah, oh yeah, they were like, not only me being a female, me being Black, like it was like crazy.
That is
like,
insane. And we're the most creative people. Who better for the job?
I was getting ripped apart. And then one of my friends, Cole, he was actually my GA when I was at Southern Miss, but even though he's like this older white guy, he's super dope. He was a designer at Tennessee, but he was for all of athletics. He had made this graphic for me announcing it, and he took a quote that I said in the Sports Illustrated article that came out, and I was like, I just want to bring the Black culture to Tennessee football. And you had fans who were like,
I know that made them go crazy.
Like, hell yeah! But then you had other fans that were just like, what is Black culture? And I'm just like, football is literally Black culture.
Literally.
So like, so you had that came out, and this came with the pressure just of being like, oh fuck, like I'm just getting, like, before I even got there, I was getting like ripped apart.
Yeah.
But once I got there, honestly, like for me, like I didn't do any of this for the accolades. Like I was just out there, just like locked in, just focused on the process of just like, I want to make cool stuff. Like that was my goal.
And keep my job.
That was like my job. Like I was like, I honestly didn't have a mindset of like, I want to be at this big school. Like I was just kind of just like doing it to do it because I wanted to be creative. Yeah. But now that I have these opportunities and these awards, like for me, it's like now I want to put other people on. So like, and so that's like, because to me, it's like once I made a seat at the table for myself, okay, it's like now I'm just, okay, how can I make an opportunity for other people to get a seat at the table?
Yeah.
So whether it's me advocating on social media, whether it's me calling people and being like, yo, like, what's up? Like, for example, like, the college football playoffs didn't have the most diverse staff. And so it became this past year. So there was only like one Black guy. And the rest of all the women that they had were all white women. So, so me having my platform and just the following, like, not only am I going to post on social media saying, hey, like, let's be intentional with how we're trying to create opportunities for minorities. I posted 2 ways of how we can do this, but also like I called Katie straight up, who does all that. And I was like, look, Katie, I'm gonna be honest, we're friends, we're cool. I worked with you last year. Like, I'm just disappointed in the lack of diversity. So I feel with
a lot of people won't do that though. No matter
right.
what relationships they have, they won't do it. So first, I just want to say I commend you, like seriously, for doing that.
So, but for my thing is, so like, for me, it's like people only see, which is fine. Like, I'm not doing this for people to pat me on the back, but like people only see what I post on Twitter and they know what I'm doing behind the scenes. So it's
exactly.
Like, so I mean, it's fine to do that, but like, it is what it is. But it's like, I have no issue calling Katie being like, look, like, we got to be intentional. Like, even with us hiring with our graphic design position at the Panthers, I straight up was like, look, like, all the people we interview are white guys. Like, were we intentional about where we posted the job? No. So we reopened the job. We got it on blackcreatives.com. We put it on this like other Latino site for other, just to broaden our spectrum of our options. And so I don't think people necessarily see the behind the scenes that I do, which is fine. But it's like when you're in a space where you have people that actually listen to you and you're advocating on social media, it's like, I'm gonna do my part and find ways, like whether create more opportunities for people or just like, or put more eyes on in different platforms. So that's, to me, that's what's opened my eyes and what's given me the opportunity with all these awards that I've gotten, to be honest. So
that's amazing. That is so amazing. That is absolutely amazing. It just makes me happy because it's people like me trying to come up in the industry and having other people who are advocating behind closed doors, because you just never know what's being said in other rooms you're not in. And you just hope it's the right thing, to push you through. So that is amazing. I just want to say thank you before we even move on, like seriously. In Tennessee, you talked about NC State. We got there. Of course, we had a little rough start, but I want to talk about in NC State. You talked about not being a good planner or not even, knowing how to have much structure. So how did you learn from NC State and then move forward to Tennessee to figure out, okay, how can I change? How can I be better? Because I'm in charge of other people now. So I just don't have to plan for me. I got to plan for everybody,
So when I got so at NC State, we were a really small creative team. So you didn't really necessarily, and we weren't really at the time when I first got there, we weren't known for our creative content.
Okay.
But the opposite. You were in the SEC. You are like, it's just the creative teams as alone in the SEC are just like super talented, super dope. And they have this like a following that it's like, you can't bullshit with being at Tennessee and just
not at all.
and creative team. So I knew I had to go in there with a plan, and also just being like a Black person in general. It's like, you already have all eyes on you. So like, you don't have a lot of leeway for mistakes.
Yeah.
So, and of course, everyone's going to make mistakes along the way. But when I went in there, I kind of knew, okay, this is like, I want to keep track of all the projects we're doing, what's priority, what are some key projects that we want to work on to really promote the team, what are some impact opportunities that I can do right as soon as I get in there. So the first thing was TikTok. Was a big thing.
I saw those. Yes, I love the TikTok.
And like, we had that one TikTok that went crazy. It had like over like 1 million views, and it was just like, and the players like loved that. And honestly, that's honestly what helped me build my relationship with the players. They saw, okay, like, I want to get TikTok. That's a great recruiting tool. So it kind of, and our players love that they're on it. So that definitely helped to both parties. But then also, what are some other things I could instantly do with helping just an organization, getting players verified? It sounds crazy, but like that's a big thing.
That's
especially
real.
in the recruiting world, is getting players verified, especially with NIL coming along. Like, how can I help their social media following? How can I get them verified? So I had an Excel doc of every single player, every single like app that they had. If they didn't have an Instagram and Twitter, we get them to make one. How can I get it verified? Things like that. And then the next thing was influencer. We used influencer at Tennessee, and it really wasn't like up to the standard that I thought it would be when it comes to just uploading photos, giving players content to post. So I made sure like I was always updating those photos, uploading, tagging, so they had content to post. So those are like the impact plays that I wanted to do when I got there. And all of that came with just structure and like kind of figure out, okay, like what type of designer man, what type of creative man, I'm a players creative, what can I do to help the players? And tie that to help recruiting. And also then how can I do it to bring like creativity to our social media platforms? So that's where the Fitted series came in, and the Man on the Street, the Tay Talks that we did with Alante Taylor, because broadcasting. So giving him his series and things like that. So that's honestly what was my plan going into Tennessee.
That's good. And impact there. And I want to backtrack just to the championship, right? Coming in, kind of being in a funk and questioning yourself, but ultimately, it came out being a success for you and a really big moment for you. And for me, I think art is really subjective. So I can look at a trophy and be like, that's just a trophy. And you can look at it and be like, we snap. And so for people who are just might be looking at like, whoa, that's a trophy, that's amazing. Talk to me about maybe your favorite piece about the trophy or a detail that you feel like really stood out to you all while designing it that other people just may not see.
So we didn't design the trophy. We just did all like the social media content.
Okay.
But I will say, so to get out of that funk, honestly, like, I don't think people really take traditional art. Like, I think people don't really tap into traditional art a lot. So the biggest thing when I was first trying to get out of that funk, I was like, what is Miami culture? I'm not from Miami. So I'm like, what is Miami? And so I was like, I asked people, like I had a bunch of friends that worked in Miami, and I was like, yo, what's like a few of my friends like are from Miami. So I'm like, what's Miami? Like, what are some areas that you think are like not represented? And everyone does the whole like the pink and blue and the like neon like light stuff with Miami. But the area that one of my friends put me on was the Wynwood area.
And Wynwood is gorgeous. Oh my God.
I had never seen it. And so she was like, Wynwood, she was like, she was like, it fits your style. Like, it's like graffiti. Like, and I love Banksy as an artist, which he's actually.
Okay. I love him too. Yes.
Yeah, so I love Banksy. And I was like, oh, Wynwood, that's like kind of like it's graffiti. Like, so I'm like, all right, dope. So I literally started researching Wynwood. I was like, what's Wynwood art? Like, what does it look like? Just like figuring out what it is. And then I also like made a list of like just Miami. So what colors represent Miami outside of just the typical blue and the pink. So I was like, oh, sunset, the reds, the oranges, kind of like the subtle blues with the Miami like culture that everyone knows about. And so then after that, I was like, okay, what elements can I tie it together? So that's why I went with like the spray painting and bringing in the palm trees, but doing like the Banksy style silhouette of it with the like adding the airbrush stuff to it. And so that's honestly how the style came, and then collaborate with Maddie on her ideas with adding the geometric shapes within the palm trees, were things that we were just like, we kind of tapped into. But honestly, to be honest, that whole like concept, I honestly loved it. It's definitely one of my favorite, like just favorite concepts as a whole. Like, I just enjoyed doing it. It was like super fun. The fans honestly liked it, and it was just, it was great. And it definitely got me out of my creative funk, because I was like, God, I suck. But then like, going back to my roots and why I got into it and tapping into that traditional art and just doing your research, like researching your area, researching the culture behind it, because Miami has a culture in itself. That helped me out a lot. So,
that's good. It's good to hear like behind it, because I just actually went to Miami for the first time a couple months ago, and I was like, it is beautiful around here. Like, I'm looking, and it's just totally different, because Chicago is like big cities, skyscrapers, and compressed, and then you have like, I'm going on their campus and comparing it to U of I. I'm like, where they got a swimming pool on campus? Like, what? This culture is different, but it's beautiful though. And I've seen Wynwood too, and a lot of people tell me about it too, and I've like looked it up. It's gorgeous.
Fire. Yes. And I explored it. Like when I first got there, one of my friends that lived there, I was like, can you take me to Wynwood? And because I just want to embrace it to make sure like I was spot on about what it looked like. So we like walked around Wynwood. He showed me just like a lot of the graffiti, the murals, like he even ate there just to like really tap into it. So I was representing like Miami accurately. And that's just, and honestly, that's just the thing that a lot of creators need to do in general, when you're, especially when you're dealing with different environments, like whether you're trying to represent Black culture, it's like, you can't really, if you don't tap into it, you can't represent it accurately. So like tap into the culture before you try to just represent it. And so that helped me out a lot. So
that's really good just to hear the background behind it. And just to move forward, my last few questions, one of the ways that I discovered you was the hashtag sports creative color summit. And I was like, they were highlighting everybody, and I'm like, whoa, like, I'm seeing the work. I'm like, okay, like this is amazing. Just tell me, I mean, it was amazing. You were filled with so many amazing other creatives around you with different backgrounds. What was just your biggest takeaway from that experience?
I will say first, it's like, you don't really know how many people out there that look like you that are in the industry. Literally so much talent, like to be around just so many like minority creatives.
Yeah.
like Christina, Camille, like just like just so many people that were there. It was just so nice to be yourself, like because when you're in a room, you can't, when you're in a room with like all white people, you can't necessarily, you can be yourself to a certain extent.
But they're gonna be looking at you like
for people to understand like your inside jokes or just like your hair, like it's just so many. So honestly, that was just like, it honestly was a great experience. But I would say my biggest takeaway is just, I don't even know, because I don't even know, because it was just like such a great opportunity. My biggest thing I would say would probably just like making sure you're just networking with people that look like you. I think is probably my biggest takeaway, because like we're always going to support each other. Like like a lot of people that I've met that I didn't even know, and I met once, like they're resharing my stuff, like giving me love, like go off sis, like we met one time, but it's like they're like always going to be in your corner. And I think people really take that, I think people take that for granted. It's like you need to also tap into the people that really look like you, because we're always going to generally support you. There's no hate, there's no jealousy, there's no ego. It's like we want to see people in the room that look like us, so I'm going to support you. And I think that's where people miss out on, especially the young creatives. Like it's like you honestly, like you want to reach out to people that look like you. And
honestly,
that more because just when I've started doing this mentorship now, and I've had so many people reach out to me, it's like a lot of it's white people, and it's like crazy, because I'm just like, in my head it's like so disappointing, where it's like I see so many Black creators young creators on social media, and it's like,
yeah,
I want to be like, hello, I'm right here, but it's like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And it's like, I just want to tell like my young minority creators, like reach out to people that look like you, like pour into us, because like we want to pour into you, but it's like, again, like we can't make you drink the water that we're trying to give you. And I always want to help people that look like me, but it's like I can't when it's like you don't want to help yourself. It's like a lot of them have these egos, and it's just like, it is sad, because it's like I've like been helping so many, like when I say I've been on calls with so many like white guys, and you would think, because I'm a Black woman, but white guys, because they don't give a shit about their ego, but it's like you're a lot of minority creatives who just like think they know everything. And it's like, no, like I'm trying to pour into you. Let me help you.
Yes.
And so that's the one thing I've just like, I want to, the takeaway is like, you got to pour into the people that look like you, because like we're trying to help you out. So
that's good. Anybody listening, if you are creative, Chanelle, hit her up. I'm gonna put her Instagram link below. But seriously, when you hear people like that who are in elite positions who say they want to help, not everybody wants to help. So you have people who say they want to help. Definitely utilize it. I would say, just even with my experience, like networking has been amazing for me. Like a lot of times I'm like, I want to talk to her. I want to talk to him, and I'll go on LinkedIn and I'll send a DM and have a conversation. I think some people are scared because they don't know people, but you just never know how you can connect with somebody so well. You never know, that person may be from Chicago, or their family may be. You can have some commonality and have an amazing conversation, and you just don't know what you're missing out on. So everybody listening, get in tune, reach out, do what you need to do.
Yeah. But there is a way to do it though. I wish I could do a seminar on this, because I'd be like,
do it.
Like it's like I actually that is part of one of my seminars I'm doing with the Panthers.
Okay. But
I just noticed that a lot of creators, especially like Black creators, really don't know how to network through social media and how to approach people. Like the first thing we're doing is like, hey, I shot for this person. How can I be an NFL photographer? And it's just like, what? Like, it's like, they'll be like, can I get a job? Can I intern? And I'm just like, I don't even know you.
No, like, yes.
Like, so first, like, ask their background, and also don't be afraid to like ask, like, hey, can I hop on a call? I think that's what's back to the point of being intentional. Like, are you just hitting this person up for a job, or are you really trying to create a relationship with that person? So whether it's just like, hey, can we hop on a call? Can we put a FaceTime? Like, be truly intentional when you're sliding into someone's DMs, and not just straight up being like, can I get a job? Like, because it's like, to me, that's what's shying away from so many people, is you're straight up just being like, can I be an intern? And it's like, I don't even know your name. Like your at is at baller123, and it's like, you I don't know your name. Like,
exactly.
So be intentional.
That's real, and that's useful information. And just to finish it up, 2 more questions I got for you. 2 of my favorite pictures that you've taken. One of them is you kind of experienced something that was legendary. Cam Newton has had an up and down career recently. and you got the picture of him coming out the tunnel with the smoke. Like, amazing. And then also the one of Keith Kirkwood crying, that was really powerful too. I just want to talk about, how do you know when you have that picture? Like when it's like, ooh, this is the one.
So with the cam photo, I know that's like an iconic thing that he does with this. So when I tell you I was so nervous, because what people don't realize about sports photography is that you have like one shot to get the shot.
Exactly.
Like people don't realize the pressure that you have. So I knew, I was like, oh fuck, okay, this is like, it's his first like in my head, I was like, I cannot mess this up. Like, so I was like, I have to get this. So as soon as I got it, as soon as he's coming out, I was like, okay, I like locked in. I was like, I have to get this shot, make sure I'm in focus, make sure I was like, my settings are like my ISO's right, my f-stops on point. And as soon as he ran out, I was like, I just locked in, just started firing away. And I was like, I knew I got the shot. And I was like, I texted we have a Slack group for our social media on game days. And I was like, I got the cam shot. And I sprinted to our Ethan. I was like, I'm sending this shot. I'm sending it. And when I tell you, like, I like didn't realize, first of all, everyone loves Cam Newton. So I did not think it was going to blow up that like how it did.
It blew up.
It blew up. And then I was like, okay, like I knew I got that first shot. And it's like, the first shot I got was when he was standing up, just kind of looking around, which I didn't really post that one. But that was just a powerful shot because you can tell he was like taking it all in. And then he did this, and then he just ran and just started screaming. So I was like, I'm just gonna keep following him, just like he was coming out of it. He was like yelling, his hair was everywhere, you see his veins. And so that's when I was like, oh shit, I just got these like two like dope shots of him that I was just like, holy cow. And then with the Keith Kirkwood shot, so Keith actually got hurt during training camp. So he actually got carted off. So he like hadn't played at all. He hadn't driven at all the whole season. So he actually posted on his Instagram story the morning of the game, and was like blessed, and like he's like waited his whole year for this moment. So I knew it was gonna be a big moment.
It's a big moment.
In my mind, I was like, okay, let me make sure I key in.
That's intentionality. That's paying attention, because a lot of people wouldn't even do it.
Again, and that's where you have to be like a player's creative. So people think I'm like, so when I follow our players on social media, I'm tapping in like stories, like, is there something I'm missing? Like, they make sure, because you just never know these moments that these players have. And so I knew, okay, Keith is like, this is a big moment for him. I didn't know he was gonna cry. I had no idea. So I was on the sideline. I was taking a picture of Coach Rule, and I heard, which I had coach, and I heard like sniffling. And so I kind of was like trying to find out. I heard sniffling. And so I saw it coming. So I just like went over there. And so again, that's why I say it's great to have a relationship with players, because I had to get close to his face. This is a very vulnerable moment for him.
Exactly.
I mean, I had to be in his face. so I saw him crying. And so at first I went to the side, and I like was getting a side shot of him, but you couldn't really like tell that he was like, no, I want to just like, so I was like, screw it, I'm just getting his face. So I got in his face, and that's when I just like saw like tears like running down his face, and I just like away, and I was getting tight on his eyes, like just a lot of different shots. And as soon as I got it, I texted, like I ran over and texted my boss, and I was like, yo, I just got this really dope shot of Keith Kirkwood like crying, like I'm gonna send it over. And so they sent it, and they put the quote, I think he tweeted out something on Twitter, and they tapped in and like put it over the picture. And that's when I just knew, I was like, okay, I knew it was going to be an iconic shot, because it was telling his story. Like it was
like you don't see that. You don't see a guy, and I mean full tears. Like you see his whole face.
Like, it wasn't like he wasn't like, it was crazy. And then like the thing was, the past game, the Bucks game, he had been out a past couple of games too. Like what hadn't been dressing out, but we had a bunch of people on COVID that got hurt, so we ended up dressing out this last game. And he started crying again. And at this point, me and Keith became really close, where I was like, I had no issue like talking with him. So he started crying again. And this one, he was like really, really crying. So this is why I got a side shot of him crying. But it's just so intimate moments that I love to capture, because he did say that's probably one of his favorite photos he's ever had.
That's something like you put up on a wall. And for me, I think, because people just see athletes as like athlete. And like to see somebody crying just because they have the opportunity to be back here, for me, it shows the appreciation for like the position I'm in, but also like how important this is to me. Like for me we just never know what they're going through mentally to rehab back. I never tore nothing, bro. And I've like fractured my wrist before, and I was super upset that I wasn't playing basketball. So imagine like going through some major, having to mentally get yourself right and then go perform at the highest level. Like that's just something we take for granted. That picture is amazing, Chanelle.
Thank you.
Yes, that is amazing. And then last one I have for you. Watch the video, you had your reels, different things, and the team did a segment, your game day routine. So getting there, 7:45, taking pictures of the locker room, tunnel, all of these things just to have a story, whether they win or lose. Is there anything else that typically photographers do not take a picture of? Tunnel is regular, locker room, those are just standard things. Is there something that people are not doing currently that you feel like you want to implement that's really different?
That's a great question. I don't think people, so I will say the part that I always like key in when I'm shooting is national anthem. And also during the game, I key in a lot on our sideline. Okay. I think people tend to focus on like the game action. And I was definitely that type of person at first, but then my boss was like, yo, like make sure like you're like, he was like, make sure you key in on things that fans don't normally see. So like fans, the touchdown, fans are gonna, but they don't necessarily see the interaction on the sidelines.
Right.
Or just like, or the national anthem, because people tend to get like these super wide shots of the national anthem. But they also don't see things that are behind the scenes, like, so like that's going on in the background. So I don't know if you saw the photo that I posted of Ian Thomas when he has the Black Power fist up and Amir is kneeling. Yes. And so maybe a normal person, it's just like a regular photo. But to me, I instantly saw that being an iconic photo because it was like you had Ian holding his fist up, you had Brandon Zylstra who's a white guy with his hand on his shoulder, and then you had Amir kneeling, and then the American flag was behind them on the video board. And so that's a part that it's like, I don't know if people necessarily key in on that, of just like what's going on in the background, that is powerful, that it's like, that it just framed up so nicely. So I think that's the thing I would want to see people focusing more on, but also just literally just getting that player interaction, like, just on the sideline, like where like Dan Arnold, who was with us, he got traded to the Jaguars, but like the way he is on the sideline, just the way he hugs players, the way he like embraces players, like we just did a post just about that because it was just so dope.
Brotherhood.
We didn't see that at all. Like you really would only see it if you're like directly behind our sideline.
Right.
Little moments like that, like a shot that I got of I think it was Sam Darnold and Robbie, where they do like they do pinky promises when they're running out of the tunnel. And it's like those little things that like you would never see, like you're just running, but stuff that I would like to key in. So this is like little moments that fans won't necessarily see that you see. I think it's dope because there are a lot of those intimate moments that could tell a story even when you're losing. Like all those photos, they could literally be posted at any time. Yeah. Not one of it was a game action photo. It was all just like intimate moments that fans would never see. So
that's good too, because I will say like I try to do that when asking questions too, like stuff that's just different, stuff that like people are not going to generally ask you. And I learned this from Taylor Rooks, because she had like an interview with somebody, like a basketball player, and it was like, hey, you always like tap your shoulder or something before a game. It's like, what? Like, that's the smallest detail. People want to talk about the layups or how they argue with somebody or how they interacted. What's the story behind that? And what do you say? And it's like, as a fan, you learn something about the person you're a fan of that you probably never saw. But also it's like, dang, that's a good question, because that person feels like you're paying attention to them, but it's also just showing something different. So that's really good. That's something I feel like I'm trying to work on too, with just kind of getting stuff that's outside of the box that like people typically don't ask or see.
Yep.
Yes. But that's really all I have. This has been an absolutely amazing conversation. So for everybody tuning in, subscribe if you haven't. Follow Chanelle on social media. Where can they find you on social media?
So I'm pretty much the same on everything. On Twitter, I'm Nellz, NELLEZ _. And then on Instagram and TikTok, I'm just like reverse. So _ NELLEZ.
Okay. Yes. Follow her. Amazing content. I learned a lot. And one of my favorite things that you do is just posting advice to creatives, which is really good too. So all of my creatives who are out there, reach out, feel open. But Chanelle, thank you for gracing my platform, for just dropping gems. I had an amazing time. I learned a lot from you, and I really appreciate you.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
All right, we out, y'all.
Skillsusa.